woman. You're gonna be just like his heart. He's so mighty. Yes, he is.
Hi, I'm Lonna Hardin, singer, author, speaker, and host of Flawless Women. Thank you for joining me for this week's show. It's created to offer hope and inspiration to hurting, broken women who need a safe space to heal, let down their hair, and get real. So sit back, get ready to embrace your flaws, be healed, become flawless from the inside out, and reflect the heart of God. Let's jump right in. Let's get flawless. Our guest today is Morgan A. Wider. As a wardrobe stylist and speaker, Morgan Wider advises executives, entrepreneurs, and college students on how to build wardrobes that convey confidence and competence. Morgan has worked with companies such as Google, Walmart, Mercedes-Benz, and Porsche to highlight how an improved image increases performance. Before launching her business, Morgan spent 10 years working at the corporate headquarters of The Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic, and Carter's. She grew several businesses with her knowledge of merchandising, apparel production, pricing strategy, and international development. Morgan is also the author of the best-selling book, The Worthy Wardrobe, Your Guide to Style, Shopping, and Soul. And by sharing her knowledge about the retail industry and her passion for fashion, Morgan helps her clients feel more powerful in all areas of their lives. And let's go ahead and welcome Morgan Wider to Flawless Women. Morgan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Your energy, I'm hyped up. I love that. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so happy for you to be here and honored that you are here. So thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to us today. And really what we're going to talk about, there's a lot to dig into because you are full. You said my energy, but your energy is so limitless. Like really, I'm so grateful
Thank
to
you.
have met you. I always start by talking about maybe how I know somebody or whatever. And I am so like honored to be sharing the story about how we met, right? Because you just never know what you're gonna find. I don't know if you've seen, I'm starting a new program called Gemstones. It's a mentoring program. And in it, I'm talking about how treasures are in people. And so I'm so happy that I found you, right? The treasure at a really pivotal time in my life. So let's get into that. So first of all, Morgan, I met you during a class during 2020 when everyone in the world was pivoting, right? And no one knew that everyone's life was about to change and that we were going to have to be on video and doing things. And I had personally been working from home, and I tell the story all the time. I had been working remotely for about 13 years, right?
You were OG in the game. Yeah, this wasn't new to you. Yeah.
Oh, gee, Morgan. Oh, gee, okay. I'm like, what y'all rookies out here, right? But I was OG in the sense of, working from home. You could be in your PJs, you know what I'm saying? You could just do whatever you want. You don't have to deal with the office politics. So for me, it was like, oh, wow, you mean I actually have to be out in front of people now? And I had actually already been struggling with it because one thing, as you know about me, is that I have these multi-dimensional hats. So, most of the time I'm mom and I'm at home, but then I'm having to be a businesswoman, then I'm having to be a singer, then I'm a writer, then I'm trying to fit all of that and express that. So I was really at a place in my life where I'm like, okay, where do I go from here? And in comes Morgan Wider, right? And we met through an actual class that I took, but you were connected to the class. And so sitting down with you, talking to you, and I remember when I first talked to you, my key that I was talking about was I really needed help with executive coaching. I don't know if you remember
I
that.
remember that. Keep going. Tell me more.
Yeah. Because at the time, I actually thought you were in San Francisco.
Oh, that is right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, because I was telling him that I had worked with different startups and Uber and all of these things, and I had this experience. But by nature, executive presence. Like I'm so like lovey-dovey, want to be with everyone, kumbaya. I really think that, one thing I wanted to highlight about that moment was that you actually came to the camera and it was just the way you approached the camera. It was just, you didn't even say a lot. It was just who you were, and you showed up in with that presence. And so I really just want to talk before we begin about who you are and how you got to this point where you could just show up without saying a word and just command the room and just own who you are, and own it in a way that not only are you sure of who you are, but you're also able to impact other people.
Oh, Lana, that is such a great compliment. Thank you so much for that. And it's always interesting and an honor to hear how other people see you, and for you to see me that way. I truly appreciate it, because as I write in my book, like I didn't always feel that way. And I spent most of my life hiding or trying to play small or trying to downplay a lot of those things that you saw, because I didn't want the attention. I didn't think that I was worthy of being seen. Or I felt that if people noticed me, they would see my insecurities or my flaws. And the work that I've done on myself and through my faith journey and through my entrepreneurship journey has helped me become the woman that you see, that that can walk on a stage and not say much. And I find that so funny because I'm such an extrovert, and I'm always seemingly talking, that for you to think that I'm not saying anything people notice is great for me, because I never saw myself as that. So
Oh my
it's
gosh, yes.
gonna work. It's all of us are work in progress and a journey that we're on to feel comfortable in our own skin, and that's what I love helping women obtain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just so like excited, even though we're just at the beginning of the conversation. Let me tell you guys the truth, okay? This is Flawless Women. Listen, my makeup is running and everything because before we came on, I just had an opportunity to just share my heart with Morgan, and I'm trying not to cry this episode, but I'm gonna give you the disclaimer that I may just shed some tears because it was
I told her that
hard.
tears are good because we're all about being vulnerable with each other. So yes.
Look, and that's why I'm talking about it. It's like, a lot of what you just said, I think is the story of not just me, but many women, that we
Absolutely.
don't feel worthy of attention and worthy of, being bold and owning our power and owning who we are. And so, even I was sharing with you that was really one of the things that I loved when you came out with your book and you were just thanking everyone and you were actually signing and you started crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she shared her heart. No, oh my God. Like, but that ability to just really be transparent, I think is so important in being flawless, because everyone I've been talking to over the past month has been saying there's really no such thing as being flawless. And when I say flawless, I think of a diamond. And really what makes a diamond, beautiful is the flaw, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what makes it flawless. So
Okay.
anyway, yeah, definitely. So yeah, I know in the book, I did read about your journey with learning how to love yourself. And I love that because I don't know how fast I should dig in, but I had an opportunity to be
Oh,
a
go.
part of your Monday night calls, right?
Mhm.
And so I had an opportunity to meet your mom, right? Through Zoom, who is
Mhm.
also very much that woman that doesn't have to say a lot. She just shows up.
That's who. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, my mom Eileen that's her. She doesn't have to say much. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing about it is you never even said she was your mom. And I remember afterwards saying, was she your mom? And it was just and it was her support was there. You could definitely feel the support, but she really never really said very many words. And reading your story and even working with you, because I said her clients, I'm actually one of Morgan's clients, and she helped me. I left that out. Morgan was she was the only stylist actually that helped style me for my album that came out, and you'll see her on my website if you go. And not only was she helped me with that, she just helped me period. And so I'm like a fan for life, because I had actually sat down with many different people and told them what I was wanting to do, where I wanted to go. And many of them were just looking at me as I was without seeing my vision or who I was, right? And so they really weren't taking me seriously. And I think that's important because for me, even when I'm dating, I'm gonna be real transparent with you. Even when I think about dating or anything like that, like if someone doesn't value my time, I get real upset, right? Because I'm a single mother and I'm also juggling all these things. And it's like no one and no business owner is gonna make an investment of time and not expect something out of it.
Mhm.
You agree with me on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I can tell you that I had invested time literally sitting down with different companies, going through different processes, and nobody was actually able to see Lonna, which is what you're talking about. You're talking about that you know, I could see you that day and you were able to see me. And I love that. And I think that's why we've connected so much. So I really want to talk about what I did read in the book, which was that you used to be a tomboy?
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
tell us about that. Tell us about that.
You know, it was very important for me to start the book off with my story because people assume that as a stylist, I always loved clothes and I was the girly girl who always loved shopping. And yes and no. Like I love to shop. Like you mentioned, my mom. I grew up. My little league was in stores. Like that was where I spent my weekends. I shopped with my mother. That was what she was passionate about. So I learned how to shop from her, but again, I didn't feel comfortable being seen, and I liked being around the guys. I played a lot of sports. The husky boys, they don't make boys husky clothes anymore, but that was like the plus, like not PC version of big boy clothes. I was wearing those because I had hips fast. I didn't want that attention. Um, and all of that kind of not wanting to look like the other or draw more attention is what fueled that tomboyness in me. So there was a side of me and my mother, too much to my mother's dismay, that didn't want the attention, hated. We joked over Christmas how she used to make me wear the saddle shoes with like the white lace, frilly lace socks. Oh my goodness, those I hated. And now I'm at the point where I can honor that tomboy side, but I'm okay with being visible as a woman and owning my femininity.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love the reason I wanted to highlight that is that what other people perceive you to be is not necessarily who you are.
Everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Everybody has a
And
story.
I think femininity under control is one of the most beautiful things in the world, right? And so even when you were saying about when I was saying about how you showed up, it doesn't have to be frills. It doesn't have to be ties and bows and lace, right? And I think that's the misconception
Mhm.
of who we are as women, right? So I know with me, that's what happened. I was already on a certain page, but now my life is going to different pages because you would say to me, Lonna, stop hiding. Lonna, why are you hiding? And I'm like, no, no,
And I could see you're hiding because I was there. You know, like I think I recognize, I know those habits. I know that mindset because I used to have it, and sometimes I still have it. And it shows up differently, maybe not in my clothes, but in other areas. So you know, this book and the work that I'm doing is just sometimes as much for myself as it is for other women.
Yeah. And I love that though. I love that I had those experiences and I know we need to talk about it more, but I just love it because it's so memorable to me. And I pray that other women that may be struggling will reach out to you. Maybe they won't get a full wardrobe redo them, but maybe they'll just reach out for a consultation because I remember meeting with you and I think we had like a 15-minute meeting. I can't remember what it was, but you were like, Lana, you're just so big. You're just so big, Lana. You're already big. And I'm thinking to myself, I am Morgan. And I'm tired of trying to hide who I am, you know? And I remember having this liberation like, Morgan gets it. Why can't the world get it, you know? And I left affirmed.
Good.
And
You know,
that is what the show is about. It's about be healed, embrace your flaws, and get affirmed.
and get it firm.
And
Yep.
I love the fact that you are saying that you self-affirmed
Oh,
to a
absolutely.
point where you had to just say, you know what, enough is enough. I don't need anyone else to affirm me.
Absolutely. Writing the book was part of that affirmation process. It had started before, which is how the book happened, but yeah, like, and it's a journey. Every day you have to choose how you're going to talk to yourself and choose how you're going to show up for yourself. That's a choice that we have to make. And that's what, if I get to help women make that choice easier because they can put on a leopard top and feel phenomenal, that's, I love that. I'm thankful that I get to do this work.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I remember a video you made. I'd be hanging out on your page, Morgan. It's a good investment. It was a good investment,
Thank
right?
you. Thank you.
But you were making this video. I don't remember. It was just a brief video where you were talking about, I think it was like your morning routines or
Mm.
something where you were just showing everyone and
Mhm.
your intentionality. And I love that you have real intentionality. So can we talk about intentionality and how does that spill over to a woman's wardrobe and
Yeah,
how women should focus on intentionality even when they're choosing what to wear?
that's a really good. The intentionality goes down to essentially how you and I met in the class, the branding class of what do you want to be known for? What are your goals? Like, what's the intention behind how you want to show up and why? So when you are getting dressed each morning, what parts of me do I want to reflect? How do I want to come across? And then I always ask why. What's my end game? What's the goal here? When you're shopping, being intentional with purchases. This is not my, as a wardrobe stylist, I am not about buying a bunch of crap and having a lot in your closet that you're not wearing, or buying just to buy or just to have, or buying designer just because it's designer. That's not what this is about. This is intentionally, how can I show the best parts of myself to the world? And how do I show myself and invest in myself in a smart way that I can show up in a good way?
Yeah, I think that's why it was such a perfect fit for me because number one, I had a budget set aside. I think you slashed my budget in like three by three. And I was like, man. And I love that you are not a stylist that is I don't know if a stylist is really capturing even who you are, to be honest. So that's why I keep pausing every time I say it. I'm like, I don't think that totally captures who she
You
is.
come up with something, let me know, because my team and I have been trying to figure out what we call me too. So
I
yes.
know it's definitely not a stylist. It's so much bigger than that. And but I love that you are not a person of trends. I
Yeah.
love that you are not a person of trends and you are so I won't talk about this too much, but I was doing an appearance on a major network and I have access to her because I'm one of her clients, right? And so I text
Thanks on my page. Yeah.
yeah. So I text, I'm like, listen, this is what's happening, Morgan XYZ. And I remember I sent you a picture of these major stars and celebrities that are on this show. And you were like, no, don't do that.
I really did.
And every time I was going to put my stuff together, I kept hearing yourself in my head, like, don't do that. I was like, thanks, Morgan.
Just because you see it on TV don't mean it's right. Just good.
So true. And I wanted to bring the reason I kind of was mentioning your mother is because in your story you talked about I've heard you talk about how your mom just knew different fabrics, how she was just somebody who always knew. And so as a child you were even like just automatically being trained without even knowing that you were being trained. So I want to talk more about that and the fact that as a flawless woman or someone who wants to be flawless, you really do need strong women in your life that you can role model and reflect.
Totally. That's exactly what my mother was for me. For a long time, she was the role model who I was trying to avoid being. I was the tomboy and she was the, you see my mother and she's always well put together. She's very, very just immaculate in her style. And what I find so interesting about my mother is that her love of clothes and style, it was innate in a lot of ways, but she came from the South. She picked cotton as a child.
Oh
She
wow.
didn't come from months. She come from very rural South Carolina, and so for her, clothes is a way to express her success in some ways. But even when she was a kid, she has told me stories of like she had a very strong sense of taste in what she wanted, and my grandmother would kind of spoil her, and my mother's sisters joke with that my mother was the youngest and always the pickiest. But I think, I learned from her the value of clothes, and that you don't have to spend a lot to look put together, that you don't have to, it's not about designer, it's about how you wear things. My grandmother, they didn't have a lot of money, but in all the photos, their dresses were pristine white, they were pressed, they were, like, there was a pride in putting yourself together that, I honor very much from the women in my lineage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would have never known that either. You said your mom was up,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
part of your story I remember was, didn't you grow up in Minneapolis?
Grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. So
St.
there was not
Paul.
a lot of brown people where I was growing up, which is another reason why I didn't want any more attention on myself, and why I felt like the other.
Yeah. So how does that color what you do today? How does that color that whole experience? I mean, especially with, let me say, the best way that I can. I don't know how far St. Paul is. Is it right next to Minneapolis?
Right, they're right next door.
Okay.
They're
That's
right
why
next
they call them Twin Cities, right?
door.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
All right. Just want to make sure I'm factual.
Oh, yep.
But how did that color you, especially your career? Because I want to talk about, you've worked with these major corporations. You worked with, man, Mercedes-Benz is probably one of the biggest in terms of image and refinery and how you come across, and Porsche and everything. But how did growing up in Minneapolis impact you? Two-part question, in terms of your career and coloring that. And then other part is, how did the George Floyd affect you, knowing that you had been there actually in the culture?
Mhm, mhm. Um, Growing up in Minnesota and growing up with two parents who were professionals in Minnesota, I at the dinner table heard a lot of the stories of what Minnesota nice meant. And Minnesota nice is coming from two Southern parents. Their challenges with Minnesota nice meant, I know racism is happening, but nobody's talking about it. Or it's the whitewashing of racism, and it's the niceness of it. So, to skip to your question about George Floyd, I think the shock of that for me was that this isn't supposed to happen in Minnesota, because everyone's supposed to be the fake nice. Like, racism isn't. I experienced racism in growing up and being the only, but not that, like, not to that point. And it was George Floyd, it was Philando Castile who went to my rival high school, around the same time that I did. It was more for me, I get this happening in the South, but Minnesota, that was it's still hard for me to wrap my brain around, because the race dynamics were very different. They were undercover, and I think the times that we're living in right now, is where all the uncovering is happening. All of the dirty, quiet secrets, all the things that are done in the dark are becoming to the light, and in some ways, it's dangerous, but it's also good that we know what we're dealing with, and we know how to fight that. So, uh, the gift of growing up in Minnesota allowed me access and exposure that I know my parents said that I wouldn't have gotten, where I was growing up in where I was born in South Carolina. And it gave me ability to interact with people very different from me, and get and have those conversations, and be exposed to things that I normally wouldn't. My parents didn't know how to take me ice skating or to a hockey game coming from South Carolina, and I was able to do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this is about, like, flawless women, flawless living, but I think it's important too to talk about what is going on right now, because I remember when I actually came for my styling, that it was right after the Atlanta riots and what had happened downtown and everything like that. And so I want to ask that. And the reason I brought that up is, now, how do you feel when Georgia now brought it home for us now? Georgia got hit first, but Georgia brought it home for us now.
So proud, and I saw something on Instagram, earlier today, that said, for all this time we thought that the South was red, but the South is actually suppressed. And so when we as brown people, um do our part and fight against the powers that be, we do take control of this. You know, like it shouldn't, Georgia should have been blue. All of these numbers, you come to Atlanta, there's a lot of us, and that was an adjustment for me growing up in Minnesota. I lived in other cities, but Atlanta is the blackest place I've ever lived in. And so, you know, Georgia being blue, to me, it's an honor, and I'm excited, but it's also like it's about time. And thank God for Stacey Abrams for fighting. And you know, like this is not new. It's just our voice has been suppressed for a long time.
Yeah. So I just wanted to just quickly acknowledge, first of all, thank you, Georgia, for unleashing your voice and helping us to do what we need to do. But definitely thank you as well, Morgan, for helping me unleash my voice, in a more powerful way. And yeah, I'm excited as well. So let's talk about, let me segue really quickly before we wrap this up into your journey and how you got into retail and your love for retail and where it took you, what you learned. I know it's a lot, but with some of what you just said about being that person, that Minnesota nice, I'm sure that spilled over into the corporate world as well. But how you thrived, how you evolved, and how you're able to actually give back to other people from all of that. So let's talk about your journey in retail.
My journey into retail happened by accident. It was senior year of college. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't want to take the LSAT, and I was like, well, I'll just go to the career fair and see what companies are hiring. Went to the career fair in my suit, walked past all these tables, and at the I was like walking up and down. End of the At the end of the day, my feet were hurting, and there had been a table at the front of the room by the doors that I thought was just like where the kids were hanging out. And there was like a bunch of people in like jeans and t-shirts. And I was like, oh, this is a company. And it turned out to be the Gap. And they were recruiting. I'm like, oh, jeans, t-shirts, bet. And I was like, and I love to shop, sign me up. And so that was how I applied for Gap has amazing retail program. And I learned a lot. And I spent 6 years with them learning the business behind clothes. And I didn't know that, I didn't really think about there's a business behind this. And I say this to say that a lot of our young people who want to go into fashion, they think that they have to be a designer, a fashion designer, but there's other ways to be creative in retail. And retail is a business, and it's a big business. So if you like numbers, if you like technology, there's ways to be in the retail space. So I spent 10 years learning customers, learning why people buy what they buy, learning how clothes are made and what makes a good value. And then I decided, I need to do something deeper. I could no longer stay where I was. I wasn't happy in the places that I was, and I knew that there was something bigger for me, and a little bit less stress than what retail can be at times. And that's how I went out on my own and decided to help women maneuver the retail landscape. And I say retail instead of fashion, because fashion to me is the Vogue magazines, it's the Anna Wintours, it's the Devil Wears Prada moments. Retail is where the masses shop. Retail is where the in some ways the big bucks are. And so I'm all about helping people navigate the retail space, and how do you make the right decisions for you and find some great things at Target or TJ Maxx or Ross or Marshalls. There's a difference there, and that's what I love, that side of the business.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that people don't know that there is a whole nother, it's funny because, I had the opportunity to attend the magic show years ago, and that's where I learned just how it was. And it's so funny that, people will buy based on what they're seeing, but they don't realize that every year they're picking out the color for you, and it's all based on that. And every spring, so you'll constantly be buying things if you don't have someone like a worthy wardrobe stylist named Morgan Wider in your life. You'll spend eons on things you can't even buy,
Right.
and I mean can't even wear long term. And I think it's important too, because now we're moving more towards the digital age where you have to go online and shop, right? And one of the things that I love that you did for me was help me to create an online kind of closet. And honestly, I'm going to tell you the truth. It seems so simple, but you picked out things that I could return, even online.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah,
love that because
absolutely. You have to. I don't do. I remember when we did our closet session, you had some stuff with tags on, and I was like, oh no, like I tell people, do not click if you cannot commit, and that means committing to the process of returning. And I don't buy. I don't even know if I've ever bought anything really that's final sale online. Even if I bought the brand before or I know that, because you just never ever know. And no, get your money's back. Get your money back.
I love that. If you
Yeah,
can't,
absolutely.
don't click if you can't commit.
And
I love
that,
that.
yeah, committing to going to the post office, committing to going to the store, always watch the return policy. Like if any, like that is because so much money gets wasted in so many. And I worked in this in the corporate office. I know this. They're betting on you to not return. So it's real. That's where a lot of like during the holiday season, a lot of them make their money.
And it's so true because even online, I've purchased warranties that ended up not being great. I've purchased things, through Amazon or Prime, and you really do have to be careful because you can just literally spend hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on things that you can't use.
Even when you are shopping in person, I it dismays me when anybody will go to a store and not try something on. Like there's no like a lot of waste happens that way too. Of you don't feel like trying. If you don't feel like trying anything on, then you don't feel like shopping. Just stay home or do something else. Because if you buy it, bring it home and it doesn't fit, the chances of you wanting to go back to the store to return it are slim to none. So you have to try things on. Manufacturers change the way they make things, the fit of something, the fabric, the cut, all those things matter. So and try on shoes, try on both shoes. I've had several women say, oh, it fits on my one foot. You got 2 feet. You get clear on like when you try things that work for you and you know that can be your go-to, that helps. It makes it again, spend if you invest the time in doing, invest the time and the money on the front end of like what works for you, trying things on, your life gets easier not only in the day to day when you reach into your closet, but then when you do go shopping, you know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. That helps. It makes it again, spend if you invest the time in doing, invest the time and the money on the front end of like what works for you, trying things on, your life gets easier not only in the day to day when you reach into your closet, but then when you do go shopping, you know what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Tell them your website, actually, Morgan.
You can find more about me and everything that I do at morganwider.com.
morganwider.com. And you definitely want to pick up a copy of A Worthy Wardrobe. What I love about Morgan's book is it's not just like tips or generic things that you just get offline and anyone can look up. It's actually her sharing her life experience and real wisdom on how you should even approach looking at your wardrobe and shopping. And so I really want to talk about this because this is my heart. Like,
Mhm.
um, before we end the show, I want to talk about this thing about being created in the image of God,
Mhm.
because that's where I think that we connected the most and I resonated with you. I was coming out with my project, which every song was about, being created in the image of God. And you were coming out with your book, which is about seeing yourself
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
image of God. So why don't
Absolutely.
you talk about that and tell us at what point you were actually able to see yourself created
Oh,
in the image of God.
have to establish that you're worthy and that you're perfect, just as you are. Like there's nothing. Your body is perfect. You are perfect. You have a purpose and a plan. You're here for a reason, and we have to establish that God made you and that you are a reflection of God. And then we can talk about the clothes. Because if I can't put clothes on someone and think and they don't think that they're beautiful or that they're worthy, because no matter what clothes I put on them, they're not going to like themselves. And I've had a few clients like that, and that's also what prompted this book, is that until you know that you're loved and you're worthy and that God made you just perfect, like God doesn't make any mistakes, then we can do the clothes. Then you'll feel good about them, and then you'll know that you're worthy of being seen and you're worthy of the investment. It's very important for me that women remember that their spirit, mind, and body, and that one is not more holier than the other. A lot of professional women think that I'm smart and I need to work myself to my success and that my image or my body doesn't matter, well, then you end up having heart attacks and aneurysms because you're not treating your body well, or you're looking frumpy, or you're dressing in all black or in baggy clothes, and that's not honoring your body or your mind or your spirit. So it's your wardrobe is a way to take care of yourself because you are a complete person and God made us that way.
I think that's good. I was actually having this conversation with God probably yesterday. And I had these conversations, but this one was like a moment where it's like, man, you read Genesis and he said, and God created and it was good and it was good. And I'm like, how many times do we look at ourselves or people? And I was actually going to do a live about it. So I'm glad we're covering it. Is
Yes.
that so many people don't see themselves as good.
Amen.
But if God created you, anything he created, he said it is good. And so I think from what you're
So
saying is like exactly, there's no flaw in God. So what's next for Morgan Whiter?
what's next? 2021, I'm very excited about. There's going to be the Audible version of the book is coming out. An online course and a workbook of the book are coming out.
Awesome.
Those are the things that I can share right now that I'm excited to do. Have more conversations and teach more about this concept of style and showing up as yourself.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Morgan, it's been wonderful. Is there anything else you want to leave? I always ask people, I feel like we've really talked about it, but I still would like to ask you, what does flawless mean to you? When you think about the word flawless, what does that mean?
Flawless is knowing that you are worthy no matter what.
That's awesome. Awesome. And tell everyone where they can get a copy of your book.
You can find the Worthy Wardrobe on Amazon.
Amazon and also morganwhiter.com.
Yes, on morganwhiter.com. I'm sold out of my inventory, actually, my direct inventory. So I'm telling people to get it off Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And then you also doing groups too. Are you still doing your Monday night groups? I know you moved it to
I'm not
Friday.
doing the Monday nights. The Facebook group is still we have conversations in there still ongoing, but more of my social media is on Instagram and LinkedIn now.
Okay, that's awesome. All right. Well, we definitely want to say thank you, Morgan, for your time. Definitely value your expertise and how you helped us with all these tips. We'll probably actually list them out too on how you can actually get flawless on a budget and make the best of your wardrobe. So that's today's show. And thank you again to our special guest, Morgan Whiter, for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. Email or message us if you'd like more information about our guest, have additional questions, or would like to see your favorite flawless woman featured on the show. Tune in again next week for more candid conversations on what it means to be flawless in an imperfect world. I'll sit down with guests from around the world, hear life lessons, stories of triumph, joy, and pain. And then finally, don't forget to live your best life and be flawless. You're worth it.